Would a friend treat anybody like he treated me? Would he? And after what I did for him?
The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
And greetings of friends and family, those of you in recovery, those of you who are advocates of, and perhaps some of you who should be. Welcome to The Great Reality. This week, our special co-host, Roger M. from Huntington Beach, California, Bruce H., and of course, yours truly, the Monty Man. Yes, indeedy, and our email address right off the bat is take12radio@comcast.net. Please email us with your comments. If you like us, hate us, or indifferent, we just love hearing from you. Welcome to The Great Reality with Bruce H. Eve is on a sabbatical until further notice. She is down in, she's headed towards Southern California to take care of her extremely ill father. And so that has opened up a co-host spot. Tony J., who was on the show last week, is going to be joining us beginning next week. The Queen of the Golden Arches, that's what we refer to her as. And she's going to be with us. But this week, Roger M. from JMR Consultants, one of our sponsors and a very dear friend of ours here at Take 12 Radio, is joining us. Hey, Roger, how's it going down there in Huntington Beach?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm happy to be on board with you guys.
Well, we love it when you're with us. Tell us about JMR Consultants.
Well, it's an LLC that was established in the state of Nevada, and it's still being determined in terms of what the Lord might utilize that vehicle for. But its first opportunity to be a service is KHLT Broadcasting and the Monty Man. So, I didn't know when it was created over 5 years ago or 4 years ago that that might be part of it. But that's what it's doing right now. Yeah.
Well, we're so grateful that it is, and grateful for you and the ministry that you have and the work you do with other folks down in the Southern California area in the recovery community. We just thank you and applaud you for all your efforts and for listening to God's voice in doing so, my friend. Good for you. Good deal. Well, this week we are talking about taking other people's inventory. And that little sound clip you heard in the beginning, did you recognize that, Bruce?
Yeah.
Did you recognize that, Roger?
Actually, I couldn't hear too well, so help me with what it was.
Okay, Bruce, who was that?
Oh, Jackie Gleason.
That was Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love the Honeymooners. Okay.
And he was getting mad because Ralph, his best buddy Ralph, was having problems with his job in the sewer because that's where he worked. No, wait a minute. No, Ralph was his name. What was Jackie Gleason's best friend's name? I can't remember. Anyway, he's having problems in the sewer, and he got him fired on purpose. He thought he was doing him a favor. And he wasn't very happy about it, so he's all mad. He goes, after everything I've done for him? Well, the topic this week is taking other people's inventory, and Ralph Cramden was definitely taking his friend's inventory. Is it possible that taking somebody else's inventory or a group of people's inventory is actually a healthy thing? Is it always wrong to do that? We're going to be talking about that here in just a minute. Before we do so, though, I wanted to read an email that we got from Sherry, and this is what she writes. She writes, Dear Monty, Bruce, and Roger, thank you for helping me with my early recovery after relapse. I listened to this broadcast. The broadcast she's referring to is the one we did on Step 13. She says, I listened to this broadcast with the hope of understanding the importance of having a firm foundation and spiritual connection to this program above all else. to understand the importance of loving my God and myself before I am able to share that with anyone else. Your broadcast was powerful, and it was just what I needed to hear this morning. Thank you for caring enough to share your experience, strength, and hope on this matter with me this morning. It will help me greatly on my new path to a new way of thinking. Thank you again, Sherry. Well, Sherry, thank you so much for that email. Whenever we get emails like that, it's so encouraging to us. Even if we get emails where people are scolding us, it's encouraging to us because I don't care how good the show is. If people aren't listening, we're just kind of talking to ourselves. So we really, really do appreciate those emails. And I forwarded that to you, Roger, last week, I think, wasn't it?
I was so blessed to receive that. And Sherry, thank you for writing that. It just validates and ratifies that we're doing God's work. And when people hear it and it touches someone, it just makes the message, we just know that it was from God, not from us, but that someone was reaching out and they used us to touch someone.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. All right, we're going to take our first break, listen to a little ditty here and something from one of our sponsors. We come back, we've got some Take 12 trivia, especially for Bruce and Roger. So don't go away. More when we come back.
When you hear that bell, you'll know it's time for Recovery 101. Recovery 101 with Bruce, Shelley, and Mark is a recovery broadcast based loosely on 12-step recovery programs. But it's less like a meeting and more like going to coffee afterwards. You know, the meeting after the meeting. Your host used to suffer from insanity, but now they absolutely, unapologetically enjoy it.
That's right.
For incredible fun and informative recovery radio, tune in to Recovery 101 at recovery101.net on your internet dial.
Free by the Sea is a drug and alcohol recovery center located in beautiful Ocean Park, Washington. This facility is amazingly gorgeous, but what's even more amazing is the integrity of the staff and the treatment provided for those wishing to recover from narcotic and alcohol addiction. The folks at Free by the Sea have a passion for presenting the solution to addiction for you or your loved one. To speak with an admission specialist, visit freebythesea.com or call toll-free 800-272-9199. This place is simply amazing.
And now, it's the Quiz of the Week.
That's right, everybody. It's time for Take 12 Radio's Quiz of the Week. Brought to you by that award-winning recovery magazine, 12-Step Gazette. Visit their website at 12stepgazette.com. Take it away, the Monty Man!
Thank you, Cecil. And this week's useless trivia is famous animal trivia. Famous animal trivia. If you get it right, if you get it wrong, there you go. Are you ready, Bruce?
No.
Are you ready, Roger?
Famous animal
ready
trivia.
as I can be.
Okay.
Famous animals.
Famous animal trivia. All right.
Lassie.
Stop.
Scout.
Who made breakfast cereal famous? Matt, Jake, Tony, or Pete?
Tony.
What are you talking about?
Who made breakfast cereal famous, Bruce? Matt, Jake, Tony, or Pete? Think about it.
No, I don't have a clue what you're even talking about breakfast cereal.
Tony. So Roger was right. Tony the Tiger made breakfast cereal famous.
There was a Tony the Tiger?
You know that. You silly man.
Not until
She's still on now, Bruce.
you know. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how well that I got that. It wasn't until you said Tony the Tiger that I even thought about Tony the Tiger. Great.
Oh my my goodness. All right, number 2.
I'm afraid we're going to lose on this one.
All right.
Don't follow me now, Roger.
Well, I'm going to let you guess first on this one, Bruce. Who wears the Stetson hat in the forest? Bobby, Frankie, Smokey, or Adam?
Smokey.
What do you say, Roger?
So would you say the question again?
Who wears the Stetson hat in the forest? Bobby, Frankie, Smokey, or Adam?
Smokey.
Yes. You both got that right. Number 3. Who is Timmy's best friend? Pug, Lassie, Spot, or Timber?
Oh, stop it.
Well, Bruce, who is it?
I have no clue.
Who is Timmy's best friend? Pug,
Oh,
Lassie?
I know. Lassie.
All right. Roger?
Oh, absolutely, Lassie.
Yeah, it's Lassie, of course. Who lives in Yellowstone National Park? Elmer Fudd, Bugs Bunny, Yogi Bear, or Jiminy Cricket?
Oh, Roger, guess where I can follow you, will you, pal?
Roger, who lives in Yellowstone National Park? Elmer, Bugs, Yogi, or Jimmy?
Smarter than the average bear?
Yogi Bear. That's right. All right.
That's it.
And here's your bonus. Here's your bonus.
Gosh.
Who eats spaghetti with his Cocker Spaniel girlfriend? Is it Sam, Bowser, Tramp, or Felix?
Tramp.
Bruce? What do you say, Roger?
Actually, I don't know that one.
Who eats spaghetti with his...
It's Tramp. Just go with it.
Yeah, go with it, Roger.
Tramp.
All right, good.
Tramp.
You got it right. Tramp. And his girlfriend's name was Lady.
Yeah,
and
Lady.
From the
Lady and the Tramp.
Disney cartoon Lady and the Tramp. Remember that famous scene? They're behind the Italian restaurant and they're eating spaghetti and they meet each other with one spaghetti noodle and they kiss.
Did you cry?
Yes.
Probably. I'd cry at plastic flowers.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the plastic flowers. Oh, they're so beautiful. So that does it for Take 12 Trivia for this week. Aren't you guys lucky? Yes, indeedy. All right, we'll be back with the topic after Bruce collects himself. Don't go away. We're going to take some other people's inventory. Yes, indeedy.
Therapy Addiction Healing Centers offers a family program that is designed to help family members learn about the family disease of addiction and begin their own path to emotional healing. We work with you, the family member, to explore your own emotional life and better understand what your loved one is going through while in treatment. We recognized what you have experienced can be extremely traumatic, and we are here to help. To begin with your journey of healing today, visit our website at therapia.net or call our toll-free number at 855-652-4325.
During a rally in the evening of July 1958, dozens of gang members from the streets of New York City came forward to turn their will and their lives over to Jesus Christ, including Nicky Cruz from the street gang, the Mau Mau's. The morning after the rally, Nicky and his gang, along with other gang rivals, traded in their weapons for Bibles. This was to be the beginning of the world's largest and most effective faith-based treatment program for those living with life-controlling issues such as alcohol and narcotic addiction. In the years to come, the author of The Cross and the Switchblade, Pastor David Wilkerson, would commit his life and passion to working with men and women from all walks of life through the founding of the international ministry of Teen Challenge. Well, we here at Take 12 Recovery Radio invite you to tune in every Monday for the Adult and Teen Challenge Good News Report for powerful stories of deliverance from the dark side of addictions and the life-changing journey of men and women who have been set free and now walk in the light of their Creator. That's every Monday, broadcasting all day right here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial for the Adult and Teen Challenge Good News Report.
Every breath you take, and every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching.
You better believe it. There's always somebody watching you and watching me. And one of the things that we do in our 12-step closed-minded discussion meetings is do a lot of watching of each other's behavior. And we have been encouraged in recovery that when it comes to our fourth step inventory, that we're not talking about the other person. We're talking about, well, actually we do talk about the other person in the first column in the beginning of our resentment inventory. We talk about what the person's name was, the person, the principal, or the institution or whatever that we're angry with. But then after that, we start looking at our part. And so it can be misunderstood, I think, sometimes that it is not wise to take other people's inventory. And I get that when it comes to the fourth step and when we're looking at ourselves and trying to change some things about ourselves and better ourselves, et cetera, and turn our will and our life over to the God of our understanding as we move through this step process. But is taking inventory of somebody else's behavior, good, bad, or indifferent, always a bad thing? What do you think, Roger?
I do not think it's a bad thing in the context of the 12 steps. I would hearken back to what Jesus said. He said, be sure and take the plank out of your own eye before you remove the sawdust from your neighbor's eye. And I think in that context, it's appropriate to observe behavior and then comment on whether or not behavior would be unprincipled, unbiblical, ungodly. And I think in that context, especially if you're working with someone else, it's okay to have that conversation. But if your motive is to make yourself look better, then it's not appropriate.
Your thoughts, Bruce?
I think he's absolutely right. I think that the thing I have to be careful of is that when I go in and I start to look at people, whether I want to call it their temperature or evaluate or flat, take their inventory, then normally I start operating on what it is that I've thought. And that's how I start to approach the people instead of listening or accepting them for who they really are.
Yeah.
And and that's all about me. And that's one of the things I had to learn. I was saying that it was okay when it wasn't until I finally took my own and realized what was going on.
And I think there can be a couple of reasons for observing, making an observation, and taking an inventory of someone else. And I'm not necessarily saying you sit down with a pad of paper or some 3x5 cards at every meeting you go to and start writing down people's names and their behaviors. That's not what I mean. But I think one of the reasons to take a person's inventory is to observe, to learn what not to do. And I think that takes some guidance from a sponsor. And I think, because I've told my sponsees before, listen, I want you to listen to what's being said here. Because there may be some things that are kind of confusing and you're going to probably want to ask questions about, because there's going to be, in any meeting you go to, there's going to be some things shared that are being represented as part of the program of whatever program you're in, and they simply are not. And it takes a sponsor who knows the literature, who's done this step work, to come alongside you and say, now, you heard such and such, and I just want to let you know that's actually not accurate. But not to place condemnation on the person that you've listened to, not for malice purposes or anything like that, but just to hear what's being said. The other, and I'll let you guys comment on this, the second is so where you can be of maximum service to the person who's talking, listening to what they're saying, taking an inventory of what they're sharing, so you can see where you can be helpful. Because if we're not listening, if we're thinking about what we're going to say throughout the entire meeting, then there's no way we're going to be able to be helpful to anybody. So I'll open that up. Bruce, go ahead.
I think you've hit on something, and I think we're talking about two different things here. Mm-hmm. You tell me if I'm wrong.
Right.
But see, you're talking about actually listening to somebody and then making an evaluation on that.
Right.
For you'll know how to approach them for the betterment of the individual.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Right.
I don't believe that's sitting around taking people's inventories. That's listening.
Okay.
For you could be of service, be of help.
Okay.
And I think, but I don't believe that's anything to do with inventory.
That's because
it's not like
you're
walking
looking
into a place and hearing somebody say, "Oh, these are a bunch of nuts," or "Oh, that guy, I can tell by the way he's talking that he hasn't done the work." You know? And then I'm going to approach or not approach or stay away from that guy because of that. That's taking somebody's inventory.
Okay, see, because we're looking at it from two different aspects, and I think we're talking about semantics here. Because I'm using inventory as a positive, not just a negative.
I don't think that's an inventory, though.
You think an inventory is automatically negative?
No, absolutely not.
Roger, chime in.
Well, for me, I think that taking someone's inventory is observing commentary or something they've said or even behavior. And in the confines of working with someone, whether it be sponsoring or discipleship or mentoring, I think can be a topic of discussion where you talk about principles versus personalities, and where you talk about program versus someone's thinking or feelings. And I think it's if you look at how Jesus acted when he was on earth, he talked about the religious leaders of the day, and he called them some seriously negative names, including hypocrites and so forth. And I think it's a matter of principles, biblical sound principles, 12-step principles, when observing something and making commentary. I think the context of when we talk about taking someone's inventory has a negative connotation. But
Right.
I think in our discussion, it's either negative or positive. It can be observation with instruction and what have you. It doesn't have to be negative. And it's different than judging. I think taking someone's inventory should be different than judging someone. I'm not here to judge them. I'm here to observe and comment on what they said based on what the program says or what the 12 steps say or what the Bible says.
Good. Yeah, that's good, huh, Bruce?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna argue with that at all.
Okay, so Bruce, when I'm talking about observing to see where I can be of maximum service by listening to what the person is saying, then maybe we shouldn't call that an inventory. Maybe we should call that listening with an open heart to where we can be of use. But what are some of the dangers of taking another person's inventory? Where do we need to be careful when we do that?
Because I can be wrong and it guides my actions. Especially if my motives aren't right.
Right.
If I'm going to sit around and just take people's inventories, and I'm not saying that I don't listen to people, for I kind of make some sort of, I almost use the word judgment. I'd like to know where people are coming from.
Yeah.
Well,
is there not a difference between judging and condemnation? I kind of think that we do make judgment calls. I kind of think that it's good and right. We make judgment calls all day long. And I think sometimes we use that word judging others when we're really saying condemning others. We don't ever want to condemn. But I think it's okay to make a judgment call to judge a situation and say, you know what, that's not correct.
Yeah, I would agree on that. Judging is different than condemnation.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be very clear in what my motive is. First of all, I had a difficult time when I came to the program of listening to anybody because I didn't care. And so it took a while. It took a while for me to literally learn how to listen without any judgment in the context of just listening.
Right.
And I think the whole idea of approaching a newcomer or someone, then there's a point you can share with them, and it's not a judgment or a condemnation. It really becomes a point of discussion and information, and maybe offer something about your story or something about the program that's a little different than what they shared. And I think that's the context of doing it in love and tolerance and kindness, but still trying to bring the point home of the principle.
Yeah, my whole thing today is going to meetings isn't to stay sober. It's to go and to listen to people for I know how to approach them, to see if I can help them. You see what I mean? Because when I hear somebody and I can go, yeah, me too, and I know what they're talking about, well, then maybe I want to approach that person and tell them about this solution. You see?
Yeah.
And it's a whole different context, but it
is.
And one of the things I would like to say at this point for me, because I still struggle with it a little bit, it wasn't until I did the work myself and seen how important this inventory was and how I used this looking at other people and taking their inventory that it was so startling to me. I was doing something I didn't even know what I was doing.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying, so if we haven't done the work, if we don't understand what that is, as the 4-step kind of, we unpack the 4-step and we're working through taking our own inventory, then I totally understand why, Mary or Frank or Peter, whoever, is having a difficult time not judging people, not criticizing people, because they don't understand what all that's about anyway. And so they're scratching their heads going, people are telling me not to take other people's inventory, but I don't even know what I'm talking about here. Well, you haven't done the work.
Yeah. See, so I'm like Roger. Today I'm trying to change my attitude and my way of thinking when I'm in these meetings or when I'm talking to somebody. I'm trying to see where I can be of service like Christ.
Yeah.
He even though he was upset with people, I think he was thinking of their welfare. Mm-hmm. You see? Mm-hmm. And believe me, he used some pretty strong language. So he was looking at people. But I also believe this, Roger, that Christ and we have the benefit of not only hearing people, but looking at their actions and seeing if the two things line up. Because believe me, if they're negative, the negative will show. And if they're positive, the positive's going to show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that as well. My sponsor, many times early on in my sobriety, I would make a comment which I thought was so deep, so spiritual, so resoundingly intelligent. He would say things like, Roger, that's lip slap and party line, and I won't use the last two words he used, but I'll just say nonsense. And I had another guy in a meeting after I shared and thought it was so intelligent. He leaned over to me and he said, "What are you, the poster child for AA?" And I thought that was a compliment.
I had
it takes a while. My point is, it takes a while for us to understand the truth, and we have to do the work and clear out all the junk before we're working in the context of principles.
My first sponsor leaned over to me after I shared one time and whispered in my ear, and he said, Monty, no one believes what you just said, not even you.
Yeah. See, that's some of the kind of stuff that's happened to all of us. Yeah. We're talking about principles here, and I'd like to say something. Maybe Roger can expand on this. But, Roger, I hear a lot, and I go a lot by hearing people, if they're using slogans or terms or AA, and they're talking about these principles and principles behind the principles. And one of the things about principles that are so wonderful in Alcoholics Anonymous, they don't change. And there's no principles behind principles in this here.
They just are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The truth is not what I think or what you think. The truth is the truth. And I like that today. When I got into the program,
the truth is the truth.
I didn't believe in principles or black and white. It was like we were operating on feelings and what I want to do and self-will. It's just not that way anymore. But it took a long time for me to get to the point where I could stand on principles. And so there is a right and a wrong. And so that's that, It's like Jesus said it, I believe it, and that's that.
Right. So I was and I brought this up I talked about it really briefly in one of our other shows, perhaps last week, but I was at a meeting of a specific fellowship, and I'm not going to mention the name of it, but it was a recovery fellowship. And there were quite a number of people in attendance at that fellowship that also attend a faith-based fellowship. And these folks have been attending this faith-based fellowship for quite a while. And they claim Jesus as their higher power, and I've seen him in church and all that kind of thing. And I went to this other meeting, and they were there, and the stuff that was coming out of their mouth, I thought I was sitting in a bar. I mean, it was so foul. It was abrasive. It was profane. And it wasn't just, a little word here or there, or somebody slipped, or they were angry, or they were trying to emphasize what they were saying, or any of the excuses we hear for using foul language. It was just part of their share. And I sat there and my mouth just dropped open because I listen to newcomers talk like that, and people that don't, claim any faith in anything talk like that and so forth, or people that are new and, those things haven't quite fallen away yet. I get that. But these are folks that have been around for quite some time. These are folks that are sponsoring people. These are folks that are I thought were carrying the message that the message is supposed to be about. And I found myself fighting really hard not to condemn them in my head. I was taking their inventory, that's for sure, but I found myself moving into that direction of condemnation. Now, I'm not sharing this today to condemn or even criticize these guys for doing that. What I'm sharing this about is because I found myself moving into that area where I was starting to feel angry. I was starting to feel resentful. I found myself getting a little teed off. Have either one of you experienced that?
I definitely experienced that. But again, it took me a long time to try and sort through. We have a term that says carry the message, not the mess.
Right.
And a lot of times we hear the mess, but we hear problem, but we don't hear solution. And so what I've tried to do is when I hear shares that are couched in four-letter words or profanity, I try to hear, is there a message there? Is someone stating what they used to do and what they're doing now and how it's changed? And are they standing on principle even though their vocabulary is suspect? That's what I try to get to. But I have the same, nature as you do, Monty, and I start to turn off. I remember early on in my sobriety, going to meetings, and there was a sign on the wall. This is like really before I even did the program. It said, profanity is not a sign of spiritual maturity. And I went, wow. And yet a lot of people in that meeting were dropping F-bombs and all kinds of other stuff. And it just, to me, there's that concept and principle in the program about attraction, not promotion. And it's not attracting to me to listen to that, although that's where we are when we first get there. So I think we need to approach those people and love on them and try and help them along with the 12 steps and let them maybe know, encourage them that, profanity isn't helping the message. And are they carrying a message or a mess? So it's tough, though. I just like you, Monty, I had the same problem. I will start judging or, getting angry because it doesn't work for me.
Well, I think one of the reasons that those of us who are muddling through this walk with our Savior is that we now have the Spirit of the living God living in us. And I think it also goes against that. It grieves that Spirit. And sometimes those lines get blurred in my own head between the Spirit of God being grieved and my own flesh getting angry. And I have to check myself. Because everybody does something for a reason. Yeah. There's always a reason.
I agree with Roger on this part of this, because when I came into the rooms, I used profanity to get people's attention because I thought they'd listen to me.
Yeah, until somebody told you something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really felt that it was almost like it was
a prerequisite.
Yeah, prerequisite. You know, that I had to do that to. They would know I was trying to get this point across. You know,
right?
Listen up. I have something to say. You know.
Yeah, and then what'd somebody tell you?
Well, somebody finally told me that I had a message, but they couldn't hear it because of my dirty mouth.
Right.
You know,
right.
I started cussing, so immediately I come under a very strong conviction, and I start working on cleaning that up. And I think that today I don't use those 4-letter words. I don't drop the F-bomb.
Right.
You know, just
right.
for people will look and listen to what it is that I have to say.
And so, you know, I had to really, after that meeting, I had to really check myself because I was starting, you get that feeling welling up in you of frustration and so forth. And I thought, well, what's really going on here? Well, yeah, it is true that was inappropriate on these other people's part. They're supposed to be a light in a dark place. They're supposed to be representing God. You know, the big book even says that he is our Father. We are his agents. What kind of agent are you being when you're spouting forth those kind of words as part of just your regular vocabulary in this meeting, but over here in this meeting, you're praising Jesus with all your heart and soul. You know, I get all that, but I found myself, I had to really look at me because I was starting to get a resentment. And I had to ask God, help me show the compassion. You know that part on 66 and 67 where it talks about this was our course. You know, when someone offended, this is what we did, and there's a prayer directive there. And so I had to stop and do that before I left the parking lot. And then it was gone. But to flip it a little bit, when we're talking about people, particularly in the Christian faith that are in the program, the Bible's very clear that we're not to judge the world. I mean, you can't expect a non-believer to act like a believer. They don't have the same values, so you can't put that on them. But for somebody who is and claims Christ as their Savior, the Bible's very clear.
But why don't more of us, you and me, instead of looking at them and talking about them,
right.
Because I think this is a phase of what we're talking about here,
yeah.
Do like the man did to me. I think that we're called to come to one another and to point those things out. If this person is a believer or a Christian and
right.
I know this and they're going to my church, I'm going to go tell them, just like this man did to me.
Right.
It wasn't offensive to me when this man came to me and told me that. What it was
right.
I said, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So why don't we do that? Is it fear? Is it pride?
Well, I think there's all sorts of reasons that we don't. We take and that's another thing that the AA or these 12-step programs have given us is the ability to take a look at ourselves and see what's going on. And I'll tell you about this fear thing. If it is fear, but the minute that we put ourselves in his hands, the fear starts to go away.
Yeah, the book says that,
and
it's true.
So I would ask him for the strength to go forward and to do the right thing, and I think that fear would dissipate. And you could go to the person, and you'd probably go to him with a very forgiving, loving heart. I wouldn't go to him
right in condemnation.
All upset and
right.
angry and mad. You know,
no,
maybe something like this guy told me. You know, I can't hear your message.
Yeah,
because of the filth that's coming out of your mouth.
What do you think, Roger?
You know, I just flashed back on. Well, I took a 2-year trip at a Joe and Charlie back in '98 at the University of Redlands, and my sponsor was there, and he introduced me to the speaker that night, Friday night. I won't use his name, but Monty's someone that you and I know well, and
yeah,
actually spoke to recently. And my sponsor, after the meeting, the speaker said to my sponsor, "Well, so how did I do?" And I'm like, "What was it?" And Tim told me later that they had been at a number of meetings together, and I guess my sponsor had commented to him about he didn't need to use so much profanity. And I found that interesting. This is a worldwide speaker,
right?
This is a long time ago, and it was my sponsor had made a comment that, and I don't know exactly what the comment was, but along the lines of, you don't need, you got a powerful message. You surely don't need to use all the four-letter words that you used. And it was interesting to see this guy who has more time than my sponsor remark, how did I do, to him. So that was, I'll never forget that. I was, like I said, I had 24 months of sobriety, and that stuck with me. And I tried, and when I think about, I don't want to turn anybody off. If I'm going to share something, I want to share the truth, and I want to do it in love. That whole thing that I heard years ago about, truth without love is brutality, and love without truth is hypocrisy, has become a real spiritual principle, foundational cornerstone for me. And so when I share and when I think or when I try to judge, I need to do it in those contexts. Otherwise, it's Roger doing Roger.
Huh. Roger doing Roger. Yeah, Monty doing Monty.
Yeah, isn't it nice today to be able to see that and not beat ourselves up, to ask God for the strength to change that and move on. That's a wonderful story.
Yeah. So, have any of you guys ever had somebody come up to you and say, "Hey, Roger," or "Hey, Bruce, take your own inventory, man"?
Oh, yeah. That happens too. Absolutely.
You bet, man. Yeah, we get that.
And sometimes we weren't even doing that, or we weren't even aware we were doing that. Mm-hmm. I was so insecure at one point in this whole process that I'd go into a meeting, and not only did I think what you were saying was about me, I assumed what I was about to hear before I ever heard it was going to be about me.
I had a really good friend that was really bad with that, and he thought I was talking about him because I shared right after him. And I'm telling you that it ripped us apart. We still don't have the relationship that we had before.
Right.
Yeah.
We are sensitive folks.
Yeah.
And
we are indeed.
Yeah.
We jump to conclusions very quickly. I've had many occasions early on in my sobriety, in my walk, with veins of pop and screaming matches with people outside of after the meeting, because I was standing on that I was right principle.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute you do that, you're immediately wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Regardless of how right you are, you're wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I give there are certain people in my life I've given full range and permission to take my inventory. To call me on my baloney, even if they're wrong, because I would rather they do that and be wrong and get my little feelings hurt than them not do anything, not say anything, and be right, and then I'm in trouble. And so I think it's important that we learn to be able to receive, these words of sometimes rebuke from certain people. We need to have people in our lives that we give that permission to. Don't you agree?
Well,
I certainly agree. The whole idea of awareness, lesson, and growth, or uncover, discover, discard, I want to be accountable. And to be accountable, you have to be able to allow people in your sphere of influence that you respect and love to have input into you. And if you can't do that, then you're not being accountable and responsible. I think that's a very healthy place to be in the context of mentorship or discipleship or sponsorship or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is a we deal, and we need to be just like this show, the three of us and the people listening. This is a we deal.
Right. Bruce?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking that it's vital, to do that, because we have a real tendency to slip back into those ways.
Yeah.
And if we don't have other people to talk to us about that, or to pull our covers when they blatantly see something going on, or they are hearing filth, pour from our mouths. But I will say this, that I'm still in a very unique stage with this, because if I haven't given you permission, or I'm not someone that I deal with you on a regular basis, I'm kind of touchy-feely when somebody comes up and...
You may not hear them.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm still... who the heck do you think you are? Who gave you permission to say that?
Well, and see, this is where my sponsor told me that very same thing. I said, so-and-so is really beginning to tick me off. This is not my sponsor. This is not somebody that I know very well. This is, and this is what he told me, Bruce. He said, say thank you. I'll consider that. And I said, well, I can do that. And he goes, no. You can say thank you. But what I hear you saying is that I'll consider that is not on your agenda. And I say, how do you know that? He goes, because I'm just like you. He goes, I want you to say thank you and then go home and truly consider it, even if they're not somebody on your permission list. Because God may be using them, as harsh as they may be, to point something out.
That could be true.
I agree.
That could be true. Yeah.
You know what? I'll give you two and anybody listening. I give everybody full permission to put it, give me input, because I want to know how people are receiving what I say, and if it's falling on death, if it's not working or something, then point me in the right direction or something. I'm open that way today, even though I may think it's inappropriate or I may not like it. I don't care if I like it. If I'm doing something that's affecting someone in a negative way, I want to know about it.
Yeah,
I think that's the key. Again, that you said, I like that, Roger. I don't have to like it. Nobody said this was going to be a fun deal. But are we willing to take a look at that? And
consider, like Monty said, consider. That's a great word, consider.
Yeah. Without an agenda, just openly consider it. Not unless, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I still have feelings, and it's offensive to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, guys, we're just about out of time. We do have a closing song as usual. Roger, thank you so much for joining us today.
Love you guys.
Thank you, Roger.
So don't hang up. Stay with us, folks. People say things that are hurtful. Sometimes with full intention of doing that. Most of the time, that really isn't their intention. It just kind of comes out of their mouth, and we hurt each other, and we beat each other up many times, not even realizing it. We're offensive to each other, and trying to get along with everybody. That old phrase, can't we all just get along? Sometimes isn't as easy as it sounds. And sometimes there is amends to be made, and sometimes there are appropriate times to ask forgiveness, and sometimes you have to be the first person to make that move. That's happened to me in my life, where I knew that if I didn't make the move to repent from what I had said or done, or to ask forgiveness, that it probably wasn't going to happen. And if God had been moving me in the direction to apologize or to be the first person to make that move, that I needed to do that. This is a song by our friend Jerry Vandiver called "Someone Has to Be the First."
I don't know if what I'm about to say is what you want to hear. I don't know if it's your deepest hope or your greatest fear. I don't know if I'm shutting myself out or opening heaven's door. All I know is I can't keep it here inside another second more. Someone has to be the first to say I love you. Someone has to take their heart and turn the key. Someone has to be the first to say I love you. And it looks like tonight that someone is me. You don't have to say a single word about how you feel. Your eyes don't have to meet with mine, afraid of what they'll reveal. You don't have to say I love you too. I don't mean to make this hard. It's just enough for me to know that you know what's in my heart. Someone has to be the first to say I love you. Someone has to take their heart and turn the key. Someone has to be the first to say I love you. And it looks like tonight that someone is me. Yes, it looks like tonight that someone is me.
Jerry Vandiver, someone has to be the first. If that's you, make the move. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, along with Roger M. and Bruce H. And we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.